I pulled into the driveway of 247 Jacaranda Street and found every single thing I owned scattered across the front lawn like garbage waiting for the truck. My name is Antonia Kingsley. I am 67 years old. I looked at my daughter-in-law standing in the doorway with a smile on her face, and I said very calmly, "Then I'm also going to clean out what's no longer useful to me." I took out my phone, and what happened next changed everything. If you're listening from somewhere far away, drop your city in the comments so I can see how far this has traveled. And please, stay with me until the end. I need to take you back to the beginning, to the exact moment my life split in two. I had just driven 11 hours straight from Phoenix, Arizona. I had buried my younger sister, Grace. 6 months I watched cancer eat her alive, piece by piece, until there was nothing left but bones and breath and the faintest whisper of the woman who used to laugh so loud the neighbors would complain. Grace was 63. She left behind 2 sons who cried so hard at the graveside that the pastor had to stop the service twice. I was still wearing my black funeral dress. It was stuck to my skin from the long drive. I could still smell the damp earth from the cemetery, the withered lilies, the sharp November air of the Phoenix desert at dawn. I had not changed clothes. I had not eaten. I had not slept more than 2 hours in 3 days. I just wanted to go home. Home. That 2-story house with the pale yellow paint and the garden in front that I bought myself in 1998 after working for 40 years building a cleaning business from nothing. I started at 22 years old, mopping floors in office buildings downtown for $6.50 an hour. By the time I was 40, I had my own company, Kingsley Commercial Cleaning, 12 employees, contracts with 3 office parks, and enough money saved to buy a house outright. No mortgage, no bank, just me and 40 years of getting on my knees to scrub other people's floors until I could stand on my own. I painted that house pale yellow because my mother always said a cheerful home keeps the darkness away. I planted bougainvillea along the front fence because Grace told me they reminded her of the ones our grandmother grew in her backyard in Philadelphia. Every inch of that house was mine. Every brick carried my sweat. 3 years ago, when my eldest son Sebastian married Arabella, I gave him the house. He was 37. He had just gotten his engineering license. He and Arabella were starting their life together, and I thought, a mother always thinks this, that if I gave them a solid foundation, they would build something beautiful on top of it. That was the first mistake. The second was trusting that love would be returned the way it was given. I saw it all from the end of the driveway. My winter coat, the navy blue one with the wool lining that Walter bought me the Christmas before he died, was lying in a heap on the wet grass. My shoes, the sensible black flats I wore to church, the walking shoes I used for my morning laps around the block, were tossed near the mailbox. 3 cardboard boxes sat open by the bougainvillea, overflowing with papers and fabric and the shattered remains of things that cannot be replaced. I walked closer, my legs moving on their own because my brain had stopped working. The photographs. Dear God, the photographs. Walter and me on our wedding day, 1982. Both of us so young and thin and terrified and happy. Walter holding Sebastian the day he was born, that look on his face like he had just been handed the entire universe. Eleanor's first birthday, frosting on her nose, laughing. Thomas learning to ride a bicycle in the backyard. Walter running behind him with his arms outstretched. The frames were cracked. Some of the glass had broken. One photograph, Walter in his reading glasses, sitting in his favorite chair, smiling at whoever was behind the camera, which was me, had a muddy footprint across it. Someone had stepped on my husband's face. And then there was the shawl, my grandmother's shawl, cream-colored wool, cable-knit pattern, slightly yellowed at the edges from 70 years of love and use. My grandmother knitted it in 1953 in her apartment in Philadelphia, and she gave it to my mother, who gave it to me the week before she died. I kept it folded in tissue paper in the top of my closet. I never wore it. I just held it sometimes when the missing got too heavy. It was lying in the dirt next to a garbage bag. My purse dropped from my hands. I stood there in the driveway and I could not breathe. The air had left my lungs and it would not come back. "What?" I whispered, but the word had no strength behind it. And then she appeared. Arabella came out of my house, with a smile so bright it could sell toothpaste. She was wearing a new dress, the kind you see in magazines, cream-colored silk with a subtle floral print. $300 minimum. Her hair was freshly blown out, golden highlights catching the porch light. Her nails were perfect, French tips, not a chip in sight. Her makeup was flawless. She looked like she had just walked out of a beauty salon. I had just walked out of a cemetery. "Oh, Mom, you're back," she said in that voice. That sweet, musical, completely manufactured voice she always used with me. The one that sounded like honey, but tasted like vinegar. "We decided to do a deep clean of the house while you were away. You know how it is. All those old things were taking up so much space. And we really needed the room because—" Surprise! She put both hands on her stomach and beamed. "I'm 3 months pregnant. We're turning your room into the nursery. Isn't that wonderful?" I stared at her. My hands were shaking at my sides. The funeral dress felt like it was suffocating me. "Pregnant?" I repeated. My voice sounded far away, like it belonged to someone else. "And those are my belongings, Arabella. My photo albums, my personal documents, my husband's—" "Oh yes, I know." She waved her hand, the gesture of someone shooing a fly. "But we needed the space in your room. It's the perfect size for a nursery. Didn't Sebastian tell you? He was supposed to call." He did not call. In 6 months of me caring for my dying sister in Phoenix, my son called me exactly 4 times. The last time was 3 weeks ago, and he talked for 6 minutes. I counted. "Arabella, I need to talk to Sebastian," I managed to say. "He's at work, Mom. He gets home late these days. But don't worry, we left a spot for you. Come on, I'll show you." She took my arm with that false familiarity that had always made my skin crawl. Her fingers were cool and firm, like she was steering a shopping cart, not touching a human being. She led me around the side of the house, past the garden I had planted, past the patio where Walter and I used to sit on summer evenings drinking iced tea, all the way to the back. She stopped at a door, the utility room door. This was the room where we stored the lawnmower, bags of mulch, the old paint cans from when I repainted the kitchen in 2015. It was a storage closet. It had always been a storage closet. Arabella opened the door with a flourish, like a game show host revealing a prize. "Ta-da, we cleaned it up a bit. Put in a folding bed. It's cozy." I looked inside. The room was 6 feet by 6 feet. The walls had damp stains creeping up from the floor like dark fingers. A single bare light bulb hung from a wire in the ceiling. The only window, small, dirty, cracked at one corner, faced a narrow alley between our house and Dorothy Mitchell's fence. A folding cot sat in the middle of the room with a thin mattress that had brown stains on it. There was no pillow, no blanket, no closet, no shelf, not even a nail on the wall to hang a coat. It smelled like mildew and concrete. "It's tiny," Arabella said, still smiling. "But it's enough. We just need you to be, discreet. With the baby on the way, the doctor says I need to avoid stress and people getting in the way." People. She meant me. I was people getting in the way. "And there's no more room in the refrigerator for your things," she continued, "so you'll need to buy your own food and keep it in here. We can't really share the kitchen at all hours. I need my calm. Doctor's orders." Something inside me broke in that moment. I felt it snap, like a wire stretched too thin for too long. But something else, something deeper, something that had been sleeping for 3 years, woke up. I looked Arabella in the eyes. She was still smiling, still waiting for me to bow my head and say thank you. Thank you for the storage closet. Thank you for the stained mattress. Thank you for the privilege of existing in a corner of the house I bought with my own 2 hands. Instead, I took a slow breath. "You know what, Arabella?" I said, and my voice was calm, calmer than I had any right to be. "You're right. It is time for a clean-out, a deep clean-out, of everything that no longer serves me." Her smile flickered, just for a second, like a bulb about to burn out. I reached into my purse, which I had picked up from the driveway, and took out my phone. I scrolled through my contacts until I found a name I had saved years ago but never needed until now. James Hartwell, attorney at law. "What are you doing?" Arabella asked. The honey was gone from her voice. "Cleaning up," I said. "Exactly what you suggested." I pressed call. I listened to it ring. And as I waited for him to answer, I looked Arabella straight in the eyes. For the first time in 3 years, I did not look away. That night, I did not sleep. I could not. I lay on that folding cot in the utility closet of my own house, staring at the bare bulb above me, and I waited for my son. Sebastian came home after 11. I heard his car pull in. I heard the front door open and close. I heard voices, his low murmur, Arabella's sharp laugh. I heard the television turn on. I heard cabinets opening and closing in the kitchen. I waited for the knock on my door, the knock that would mean my son remembered I existed, that he cared that his mother had just driven 11 hours from his aunt's funeral, that he noticed all her belongings were rotting on the lawn. The knock did not come. At midnight, I could not take it anymore. I got out of that cot and walked barefoot down the hallway of my house, feeling the cold tile under my feet. I knew every inch of this floor. I had chosen these tiles. I had watched the contractor lay them. I had mopped them 1,000 times. I knocked on the master bedroom door, my bedroom once, the room where Walter and I slept for 22 years. "Sebastian," I called softly. Silence. "Sebastian, son, I need to talk to you." The door opened a crack. My son's face appeared in the gap. He looked terrible. Dark circles carved deep under his eyes. His cheeks were hollow. He had lost weight since I last saw him, 15, maybe 20 pounds. He looked like a man being slowly consumed by something he could not name. "Mom, it's late," he whispered. "What's wrong?" I felt my throat close. "What's wrong?" "Sebastian, they threw all my things on the lawn. They put me in the utility room. And you didn't even tell me Arabella is pregnant." He looked down. He could not meet my eyes. "Mom, I was going to tell you, but you were in Phoenix with Aunt Grace, and I just buried my sister, Sebastian." My voice cracked on her name. "I just said goodbye to the only family I had left from my generation, and I come home to find I've been treated like trash. It's not personal, Mom." He rubbed his eyes with the heels of his hands. "We just need the space. With the baby on the way, things have to change." "Change?" I looked at him. This man, this stranger wearing my son's face. "Sebastian, I bought this house. I gave it to you because I thought you would want me here, that we would be a family. And we are, Mom, but Arabella, she's stressed. The pregnancy has been difficult. The doctor says we shouldn't upset her." "And me?" I whispered. "Don't I matter?" He sighed. The sigh of a man who has already made his choice and does not want to defend it. "Of course you matter, Mom, but you have to understand. Arabella is my family now, my priority. You always told us, when you get married, your wife comes first." Every word was a knife, not because they were cruel, but because they were mine. My own words, twisted and thrown back at me like weapons. "Not like this, son," I whispered. "Not like this. Mom, please. We're tired. We'll talk tomorrow, okay? Try to be understanding." And he closed the door. I stood in that hallway, my hallway, trembling. My son, my Sebastian. The boy whose diapers I changed at 3 in the morning. The boy I taught to read using the old wooden table my grandmother brought from Philadelphia. The boy who hugged me the night Walter died and whispered, "Mom, I'm going to take care of you now. I promise." That boy had just closed the door in my face. I walked back to the utility room. I closed the door. And then, only then, I let myself cry. I cried for Grace, who died too young. I cried for Walter, who had been gone 10 years, but whose absence still ached like a fresh wound every single day. I cried for the woman I used to be, strong, proud, unbreakable. I cried for the mother who gave everything and got a storage closet in return. But somewhere in the middle of all that crying, something shifted. The sadness did not disappear. It changed shape. It hardened. It became something with edges and weight and purpose. It became determination. I sat up on that cot and opened the small nightstand drawer. Inside was something no one knew I had, an old notebook where I kept a careful record of every major expense related to this house since the day I let Sebastian use it. I am a woman who grew up poor. When you grow up poor, you learn that every dollar has a name and a purpose. You learn to write things down. You learn that trusting people with money is not the same as trusting them with your heart. Because people will break your heart and apologize, but they will take your money and pretend it never existed. I opened the notebook and began cross-referencing it with the bank statements I could access on my phone. Sebastian had given me a linked debit card to my savings account years ago for emergencies. I had never used it, but I could see every transaction, and what I saw froze my blood. January, $4,500. Living room remodel. February, $5,200. New furniture. March, $3,800. No description. April, $6,100. Trip to Miami. May, $4,800. Various purchases. June, $5,400. Decoration. July, $7,300. No description. August, $7,900. Baby expenses. I added the numbers 3 times because my hands were shaking so badly I could not hold the pencil steady. $45,000. $45,000 in 8 months. Then I checked the savings account balance. The account that once held $58,000. My retirement money, my severance package, my 40 years of scrubbing and saving. Current balance, $8,954. Nearly $50,000. Gone. I sat on the floor of that utility closet, my back against the damp wall, and I tried to breathe. My chest hurt. My eyes burned. The room was spinning. They had used me. They had taken my money, kicked me out of my room, thrown my life on the lawn, and they did it all while I was holding my dying sister's hand in Phoenix, because I trusted them, because I loved them, because I never imagined my own son would let this happen. But the money was not the worst part. The worst part came at 2 a.m, when I could not sleep and I needed to hear a human voice. I put on a robe, slipped quietly out of the house, and walked 20 yards to Dorothy Mitchell's kitchen door. Dorothy was 72, a widow like me, a woman who woke before dawn every day to bake biscuits and pies for the farmer's market. I could see her kitchen light on. I could smell fresh dough and hot coffee through the screen door. I knocked gently. "Who's there?" Dorothy's voice called out. "It's me, Dorothy. Antonia." The door opened immediately. Dorothy took one look at my face and pulled me inside without a word. She poured me coffee, sat me down at her old wooden table and held my hands in hers, rough, calloused, warm. "Honey," she said, "I didn't want to say anything because you were with your sick sister, but I've seen things." "What things?" Dorothy sighed deeply. "Your daughter-in-law. She changes cars every couple of weeks, red one, white one, gray one. And the shopping bags she brings in, Nordstrom, Neiman Marcus, Louis Vuitton. Every single day, honey, every day." My stomach turned. "And Sebastian," she continued, "I see your boy leave before sunrise and come back after dark. He looks awful, Antonia, thin and tired, like he's not eating right." "Anything else?" Dorothy hesitated. Then she spoke in a lower voice, like someone sharing a secret that burns. "The other week, I saw them sell your furniture. The old set from the living room. The carved mahogany ones. Some men came in a truck, and your daughter-in-law was out there smiling and counting cash. I heard her tell one of the men $1,500. The coffee cup fell from my hands. It shattered on Dorothy's kitchen floor, and I barely heard it. $1,500. That furniture, my grandmother brought it from Philadelphia on a freight truck in 1952. A dining table, 6 chairs, and a sideboard, all hand-carved mahogany with dovetail joints and brass hardware. My mother polished that set every Sunday after church for 30 years. I taught Sebastian to read his first words at that table. We ate Thanksgiving dinner there for 3 decades. Walter carved the turkey at that table every November until the November he could not. That furniture was worth $10,000. Easy. More to anyone who understood what they were looking at. And Arabella had sold it for $1,500, the price of one of her handbags, while I was in Phoenix watching my sister die. "How long ago?" I asked. My voice was dead. 2 weeks, honey, while you were in Phoenix. I sat in Dorothy's warm kitchen, surrounded by the smell of biscuits and coffee, and I felt the last piece of the puzzle click into place. The missing money, the excessive spending, the sold furniture, the clothes on the lawn, the utility closet. Arabella was not just pushing me out of the house. She was erasing me, my history, my memories, my existence, and my son was letting her do it. I returned to the utility closet as dawn was breaking. Pink light crept through the dirty window, falling across the stained mattress and the damp walls. I sat on the cot with the bank statements and my notebook on my lap, and I remembered something. I remembered my mother, who raised 5 children alone after my father walked out. I remembered how she used to sit us down at that mahogany table and say, "Girls, a woman is not strong because of what she has. She is strong because of what she is capable of rebuilding when everything is taken from her. I wiped my tears. I picked up my phone and took photographs of everything. The utility room, the damp walls, the bare bulb, the stained mattress. Then I went outside, still in my robe, and photographed every single item on the lawn. Every cracked picture frame, every scattered shoe, every piece of my life that had been treated like garbage. Because if life had taught me anything, it is this: the truth always needs proof. And then I opened the drawer one more time and pulled out a document I had kept folded in an envelope at the bottom of my notebook. A document I had guarded like a treasure for 3 years without really knowing why. The deed to the house. My name, Antonia Rose Kingsley. Sole owner, 247 Jacaranda Street, Chicago, Illinois. Sebastian had never done the paperwork to transfer the title. I had given him my word, my trust, my keys, my home. But I had never given him the deed, because somewhere deep in the back of my mind, the part that grew up poor, the part that learned to write everything down, the part that never fully trusted anyone with money, I had kept this one thing for myself. They thought they had won. They thought I was a broken old woman who would accept a closet and be grateful for the crumbs. They had no idea what was coming. At 9 o'clock sharp the next morning, I was knocking on the door of James Hartwell's law office. I had washed up at the utility sink in the yard because Arabella had locked the main bathroom so I would not use her hot water. I was wearing my black funeral dress, the only decent thing I had left. My hair was pulled back into a firm bun, neat and dignified, because when you go to fight for what is yours, you must look like you deserve it. And I did. James Hartwell's office smelled like old leather and strong coffee. The walls were lined with law books and framed diplomas from the University of Chicago. Behind his desk hung a photograph of him shaking hands with Walter at a charity gala in 2009, 3 years before my husband's heart gave out without warning on a Tuesday afternoon in October. James stood when I walked in. He did not shake my hand. He hugged me. A long, tight, real hug, the kind I had been needing since I walked into that driveway. "Antonia, my dear, I'm so sorry about Grace. She was a magnificent woman." "Thank you, James," I said, feeling that familiar lump rise in my throat. "But I didn't come to talk about Grace. I came for something else." We sat down. He poured me a glass of water and waited. James Hartwell was 70 years old and had been practicing family law for 43 of them. He knew when to talk and when to listen. Right now, he was listening. I opened my bag. I took out the notebook, the bank statements I had printed at the library that morning before his office opened, the photographs, 47 of them, that I had taken of my belongings on the lawn, the utility closet, the stained mattress, the locked bathroom door. I laid everything on his desk like a surgeon laying out instruments before an operation, and I told him everything. I watched his face as I spoke. It moved through stages: concern when I described the utility room, surprise when I showed him the bank statements, and then something harder, something colder, when I told him about my mother's furniture. "They sold it for $1,500, James. Hand-carved mahogany from 1952, worth 10 times that at least, and they sold it while I was holding my sister's hand in hospice." James leaned back in his chair. He rubbed his chin slowly, the way he always did when his mind was working 3 steps ahead of the conversation. "Antonia, this is serious. Very serious." "I know. Does Sebastian know you have access to those bank statements?" "He gave me the card years ago. I think he forgot. I never used it." James nodded. "All right, let's take this one step at a time." He picked up the deed, the document I had guarded for 3 years, and examined it page by page, turning each sheet with the careful attention of a man who has seen 1,000 cases but still respects the weight of paper. He checked the signatures, the notary stamps, the registration numbers, and then he smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a chess player who has just seen checkmate 4 moves ahead. "Antonia, do you understand what we have here? Tell me." "This deed is 100% in your name. Sebastian never executed a formal transfer of ownership. There's no quitclaim deed, no grant deed, no notarized document of any kind transferring the property." My heart skipped. "But I gave it to him, as a gift, when he got married. You gave him your word. You gave him your keys. You gave him permission to live there. But legally, a gift of real estate requires a formal conveyance, a signed, notarized deed recorded with the county. That never happened. He tapped the document with one finger. In legal terms, what you gave Sebastian is called a tenancy at will. You lent him the house. But the house, Antonia, every brick, every window, every square inch, is still yours. I sat very still. I could hear my own heartbeat. So that means you can revoke that permission whenever you choose. They are, legally speaking, your guests. Guests who have overstayed their welcome. For the first time in days, in weeks, in months, I felt something warm move through my chest. Not anger, not sadness. Something quieter than both. Hope. And the money? I asked. The $45,000. James reviewed the statements with a deepening frown. These transfers were made using a card linked to an account solely in your name. Did you authorize any of these transactions? No, never. And Sebastian, is he a co-owner of the account? I thought carefully. No, he has the linked debit card, but the account is in my name alone. I gave it to him when I stopped. When I lent him the house, I wanted him to have a safety net. But you never signed a document adding him as a joint account holder? No. James clasped his hands on the desk. Antonia, this is delicate. If Sebastian, or anyone using his card, made these withdrawals without your explicit documented authorization, it constitutes misappropriation of assets. In plain language, it is family fraud. The word landed on me like a stone dropped from a great height. Fraud. My own son. I don't want to send him to prison, James, I said quickly. I just want things to be fair. And they will be. But first, you need to reclaim your leverage. Here's what we're going to do. He took out a legal pad and began writing in his precise, slanted handwriting. First, today, right now, we change every password on your bank accounts. You will be the only person with access. I nodded. Second, we prepare a formal inventory of every item that was in that house when you gave Sebastian permission to use it, including the antique furniture. We will formally document the unauthorized sale of your property. Can I do that? Of course you can. You never removed your name from the deed. Legally, everything fixed in that house was yours. The furniture, the appliances, anything that was there before Sebastian moved in. Third, he looked up at me. We formally notify Sebastian that he has 30 days to either vacate the property or sign a legal lease agreement. Monthly rent, clear terms, enforceable clauses. Rent? The word surprised me. From my own son? James looked at me with eyes that had seen 1,000 families tear themselves apart over houses and money and pride. Antonia, your son put you in a storage closet. His wife threw your dead husband's photographs on the lawn. They spent your retirement savings on trips and designer clothes. They sold your mother's furniture for pennies. He paused. Do you really believe he deserves to continue living there for free? I had no answer, because he was right. And if he refuses? I asked. Then we begin formal eviction proceedings. With the evidence you have, the photographs, the bank records, the deed, a judge will rule in your favor. I've seen it happen in less than 90 days. I stared out the window. Downtown Chicago moved past in its usual rush. Taxis honking, pedestrians weaving, a street vendor selling hot dogs on the corner of Adams and Clark. Normal life. And here I was, about to detonate mine. Is there anything else I should know? James asked, pulling me back. Any other assets, properties, accounts they might have access to? I hesitated. Then I told him. There's a small apartment building in the factory district. Walter left it to me. 2 units. We've been renting them out for years. How much? $1,800 a month. The income goes into a separate account. One I opened years ago just for the building's maintenance. Sebastian doesn't know about it. James smiled broadly. So you have independent income. That changes everything, Antonia. It means you can live on your own terms if you choose to. You don't need that house to survive. You don't need Sebastian's permission for anything. The idea hit me like cold water. Living alone, at 67, after a lifetime spent taking care of everyone else. James, I don't know if I can. He leaned forward. Antonia, what do you want? Not what you think you should want. Not what a good mother is supposed to want. What do you, the woman sitting in front of me right now, actually want? I was quiet for a long time. What did I want? I wanted my son to look me in the eye and say he was sorry. I wanted him to mean it. I wanted to sit at my mother's mahogany table one more time and feel Walter's presence in the wood grain, and the brass handles and the scratch marks from 30 years of family dinners. I wanted my house back, my room, my kitchen, my garden. But more than any of that, more than the house, more than the money, more than the apology, I wanted them to understand that I was not disposable. I was not old furniture to be dragged to the curb. I was not a problem to be solved with a storage closet and a stained mattress. I was Antonia Rose Kingsley, Walter's widow, mother of 3, a woman who built a business from a mop and a bucket, a woman who raised her children alone after burying her husband, a woman who deserved to be treated like a human being. I want justice, I said finally. I want them to learn that you cannot treat people this way, especially not your own mother. James nodded slowly. Then that's exactly what we'll give you. But Antonia, I need you to be prepared. This is going to get ugly. There will be tears, screaming, bargaining. Sebastian will try to make you feel guilty. Arabella will play the victim. They will call you selfish. They will call you cruel. They may call you crazy. They already do, I whispered. But now it's going to get worse, because now you're fighting back. And when you fight back, people show you exactly who they really are. I took a deep breath. I thought of my mother's furniture, sold for $1,500 to strangers. I thought of Walter's photograph with a footprint across his face. I thought of the locked bathroom door, and the stained mattress, and the bare light bulb swinging in that 6x6 room. I'm ready, I said. Are you sure? I'm sure. James Hartwell stood. He extended his hand. I shook it. Then let's begin. I left that office 3 hours later. In my bag, I carried new documents, changed passwords, a detailed action plan, and something more important than all of it combined. I carried certainty. I walked through downtown Chicago with my shoulders straight and my head up. I stopped at a bakery on Michigan Avenue and bought myself a coffee and a cinnamon roll. I sat on a bench in Grant Park and ate slowly, watching pigeons fight over breadcrumbs and businessmen rush past with phones pressed to their ears. And for the first time in weeks, I smiled, because they thought they had broken me. They thought I would bow my head and shuffle into that closet and be grateful. They thought I was finished, but I was not finished. I was not even close. 3 days passed. I went about my routine in that utility closet, quiet, patient, waiting. I cooked on a small electric grill I bought with my own money. I ate on disposable plates. I washed up at the utility sink. I made no phone calls. I started no arguments. I let Arabella believe she had won. And then, on the 4th evening, I came home to find the ambush she had prepared. I heard voices in the living room the moment I stepped inside. Many voices. I looked around the corner carefully. Arabella was there, dressed like she was posing for a magazine cover. A pale pink dress that probably cost more than my monthly grocery budget for 6 months. Next to her sat her parents. Howard Pemberton, a heavy-set man with a thick mustache and the air of someone who believed his opinions were facts. And Virginia Pemberton, thin, elegant, with the kind of face that looked permanently disappointed in everything around her, especially me. Sebastian sat across from them in a button-down shirt and dress pants. He kept pulling at his collar like it was choking him. His eyes darted around the room like a man looking for an exit that did not exist. "Mom!" Arabella called out the moment she spotted me. That voice again. Sweet as syrup, phony as a $3 bill. "I'm so glad you're here. I prepared a family dinner. My parents wanted to better understand our situation. Our situation. As if I were a plumbing problem that needed a professional opinion. Good evening, I said briefly, trying to pass through to the utility closet. Oh, no. Arabella grabbed my arm. Firmly, not gently. I've already set the table. It would be rude if you didn't join us. Besides, we need to discuss some important things. I had no choice. Or rather, I had every choice, but I wanted to hear what they had to say. A good general listens before she strikes. I sat down at the dining table. My table. The one I bought at an antique market on Halsted Street 15 years ago. Arabella served dinner with the precision of a hostess at a 5-star restaurant. Chipotle chicken, red rice, Caesar salad. Everything looked beautiful. Everything smelled like home. but the air was thick enough to cut. Howard Pemberton wiped his mouth with a cloth napkin and cleared his throat like a man about to deliver a verdict. "Mrs. Kingsley," he began, "my daughter tells me there have been some misunderstandings lately." "Misunderstandings," I repeated. I measured each syllable the way you measure medicine, carefully, precisely. Virginia leaned forward. "Arabella tells us you feel displaced, but you have to understand, Mrs. Kingsley, that young people need their own space, especially now with the baby on the way. Surely you can appreciate that." I gripped my fork tighter. "I understand the need for space perfectly, Virginia. What I don't understand is why my belongings were thrown on the lawn without anyone asking me." "Oh, Mom, let's move past that already." Arabella waved her hand with that theatrical gesture she had perfected. "It was a simple miscommunication. I already apologized." A lie. She had never apologized. Not once. Not a single word. "And about the living arrangements," Howard continued, settling back in his chair as though he were chairing a board meeting. "I think it's actually very generous of Sebastian and Arabella to have given you a space. There are plenty of people your age who don't even have that." People my age. As if 67 were a disease. As if I should be grateful to sleep on a stained mattress in a closet that smelled of mildew because at least I had a roof, my roof, over my head. Virginia set down her wineglass with a delicate clink. "At your age, Mrs. Kingsley, perhaps you should be thinking about making things easier. For everyone. There are some lovely retirement communities these days. Nurses on staff, activities, people your own age. Wouldn't that be more comfortable?" There it was. The real reason for this dinner. The chicken and rice and polite smiles were just wrapping paper. Inside the box was this. They wanted me gone. Not just out of my room. Out of the house. Out of their lives. I looked at Sebastian. My son had not spoken a single word since I sat down. His eyes were fixed on his plate. He was cutting the same piece of chicken over and over, not eating it, just cutting. "Sebastian," I said. My voice was firm. "What do you think about this?" He finally looked up. His eyes were empty, exhausted, the eyes of a man who had surrendered something essential and could not remember what it was. "Mom, I just want everyone to be okay. I want peace." "Peace?" I repeated. "You're asking me for peace while your in-laws are sitting at my table planning to send me to a nursing home?" "It's not a nursing home, Mom." Arabella jumped in quickly. "They're luxury retirement communities, with gardens, with—" "I'm not interested." Silence dropped over the table like a slab of concrete. Howard shifted in his chair. "Mrs. Kingsley, I understand this is difficult, but you need to be realistic. Sebastian and Arabella are building their family. And you? Well, you've completed your cycle. You raised your children. Now it's time for them to live their lives. Completed my cycle, like I was a washing machine that had finished its last load. But the worst was still coming." Virginia straightened her posture and folded her hands, the gesture of a woman about to discuss business. "And regarding the financial situation, Arabella mentioned there have been some confusions with the bank accounts." There it was, the real reason. Not the nursing home, not the baby, not the space, the money. They had discovered they could no longer make withdrawals. The passwords had been changed, and they were panicking. "There were no confusions," I said clearly. "I simply changed the passwords to my accounts. My accounts, as I should have done a long time ago." Arabella dropped her silverware with a theatrical crash. "See, Sebastian, I told you your mother was acting strange. Why would you do that, Mom? That money is for the family." "That money is mine," I said. I felt my blood rising, but I kept my voice level. "Money I saved over 40 years. Money that was spent without my knowledge or my permission. $45,000 in 8 months. Would you like to tell everyone at this table what it was spent on, Arabella?" Her face went white, then red, then a shade of purple I had never seen on a living person. "How dare you? How dare I what? Ask for an accounting of my own money? Ask why my mother's furniture was sold without my authorization? Question why I was treated like garbage the day I came home from my sister's funeral? Mom, please." Sebastian stood up, his hands outstretched, palms open, the universal gesture of a man trying to stop a flood with his fingers. "Don't do this. Not in front of them." "Not in front of them?" I looked at my son. Sebastian, they came here to convince me to move to a nursing home. And you're worried about appearances? Howard slammed his fist on the table. The glasses rattled. Madam, you are being very rude. We came as family to find a civilized solution. Civilized? I laughed. It was not a happy laugh. It was the sound of 40 years of patience finally cracking. Is throwing my belongings on the lawn civilized? Is selling my mother's heirloom furniture civilized? Is draining $50,000 from my savings account civilized? That money was for the house, Arabella shouted. All the honey was gone now. What was left was vinegar, pure, undiluted. To improve it, to make it worth something. This house is already worth plenty, I said. And then I pronounced each word slowly, clearly, the way you speak when you want every syllable to land like a hammer. And it is still mine. The silence that followed was absolute. I could hear the kitchen clock ticking. I could hear a car passing on Jacaranda Street. I could hear my own heart pounding. Arabella blinked. What? You heard me. This house is in my name. The deed was never transferred. Sebastian lives here by my permission, a permission I can revoke whenever I choose. I watched the color drain from Arabella's face like water from a sink. I watched Howard and Virginia exchange a look of pure, undisguised panic. I watched Sebastian slump forward in his chair and put his head in his hands. No, Arabella whispered. That can't be right. Sebastian told me the house was his. He promised me before we got married. Then he made a promise he could not keep, I said. The fact is this. The house is legally mine. Every brick, every window, every inch of the floor you're sitting on. Arabella turned on Sebastian with a speed that made me flinch. Tell me it's not true. Tell me this old woman is lying. Sebastian lifted his head slowly. There were tears running down his cheeks. It's true, he said. His voice was barely audible. I never finished the paperwork. I thought Mom would never what? Arabella's voice was a blade. Would never find out? Would never fight back? You told me you owned this house. Virginia's voice cut through the chaos. Cold, precise, furious. You told my daughter she was marrying a man with assets. And there it was, the naked truth, ugly and raw, sprawled across my dining table between the Chipotle chicken and the Caesar salad. Arabella had not married my son for love. She married him for a house. My house. Howard stood abruptly, nearly knocking over his chair. This is unacceptable. Virginia, we're leaving. I will not sit here and be subjected to this ambush. These are not accusations, Howard, I said calmly. They are facts, and I have documents to prove every single one. He pointed a thick finger at me. You are a bad mother. A real mother would never do this to her own son. Those words hurt. I will not pretend they did not. They hurt more than the utility closet, more than the stained mattress, more than the locked bathroom door, because every mother, no matter how strong, no matter how certain, carries a secret fear that she is not good enough. But I was done letting fear make my decisions. A real mother, I said, teaches her children to respect others, to value what they're given. To be honest, I did all of that. If Sebastian didn't learn those lessons, that is his failure, not mine. I turned and walked toward the utility closet. Behind me, the dining room erupted. Arabella crying hysterically, Virginia shouting, Howard demanding answers, Sebastian begging everyone to calm down. I closed the door. I leaned against it. I was trembling from head to toe. It was the hardest thing I had ever done, but it was also the most necessary. That night, around 11, violent banging shook the utility room door. Mom, open up. We need to talk. Sebastian's voice was raw, stripped of everything except desperation. I did not open it. Mom, please. Arabella is hysterical. She's talking about leaving. Her parents are threatening to get involved. Please, just open the door. I still did not open it. What do you want me to do? Get on my knees? Cry? Tell me what you want and I'll do it. But please, please don't take the house from us. I opened the door. Sebastian was a wreck. His hair stuck out at angles. His eyes were swollen red. His shirt was untucked and wrinkled, like he had been pulling at it for hours. He looked 10 years older than the man I had seen at dinner. Sebastian, I said quietly, I'm going to say something, and I need you to listen. Not respond. Listen. He nodded, wiping his nose with the back of his hand like a little boy. I never wanted to take anything from you. I gave you this house because I loved you. I gave you my savings because I wanted you to be safe. I gave you my space because I believed we were a family. I know, Mom. I know. I'm not finished. My voice did not rise. It did not need to. You treated me like trash. You humiliated me. You took my money without asking. You let your wife sell my mother's furniture. And when I came home broken from burying my sister, the last person in this world from my generation, you closed the door in my face and told me to be understanding. It was Arabella's idea. I didn't know about all of it. You knew. I held his gaze. You knew, and you chose to do nothing. You chose her comfort over my dignity. And when I stood in this hallway at midnight, begging my own son to look at me, you said she was your priority. Sebastian dropped to his knees on the cold tile floor. Right there in the hallway of my house, my 40-year-old son knelt in front of me like a child confessing to a broken window. Forgive me, he sobbed. I was a coward. I was a terrible son. But I'm begging you, Mom, don't put us on the street. I looked down at him, this man kneeling and crying, and I felt something I did not expect. Nothing. Not anger, not satisfaction, not pity, nothing. And that terrified me more than anything else, because it meant something between us had died. Not love. Love doesn't die that easily. But trust. Trust was gone. I'm not going to put you on the street, I said finally. But tomorrow morning you are coming with me to James Hartwell's office, and we are signing a legal agreement with clear rules. Rent, repayment, boundaries. Whatever you say, Mom. Whatever you say. And the $45,000 will be repaid. Every cent. Either Arabella pays it or you pay it. But it will be paid. He nodded desperately. Now go. I'm tired. He stood slowly, unsteadily. At the door, he turned back one last time. Do you hate me, Mom? The question hit me in a place I did not know was still tender. No, Sebastian, I don't hate you, but I don't recognize you either. The son I raised would never have done this to me. I closed the door, and for the first time in days, I slept. Not well, not deeply, but I slept because I knew the first battle was over. The next morning, we sat in James Hartwell's office. Me, Sebastian, and Arabella. Arabella came in dark glasses that covered half her face, a tissue clenched in her fist, ready for drama. James laid the deed on the desk. He laid the bank statements beside it. He presented the evidence the way a surgeon presents x-rays, clearly, clinically, without emotion. The house, 100% mine. The money, $45,300 taken without authorization. The furniture, sold without consent. Sebastian and Arabella sat on opposite sides of a silence that could have swallowed the room whole. And then they did what desperate people always do. They turned on each other. She used the card, Sebastian said, pointing at Arabella. I lent it to her. She told me she needed... Because you told me we had money, Arabella fired back. You said your mother gave it to us. I said she lent it, not gave. James stopped them with a single raised hand. The responsibility is shared. The money will be returned. All of it. The agreement was signed that morning. Rent, $1,200 a month. Debt repayment, $1,000 a month for 4 years. Arabella would find employment. If they missed a single payment, eviction proceedings would begin immediately. Arabella hissed at me as she signed. When this baby is born, you'll never meet it. You'll die alone and bitter. I looked at her steadily. If that's the cross I have to carry, I'll carry it. But I will never be a slave in my own house again. I moved out that same week. Not because they forced me, because I chose to. I found a small apartment with the income from Walter's building in the factory district. 1 bedroom, a kitchen, a full bathroom. Eleanor helped me pick out curtains. Thomas sent money for a comfortable reading chair. It was modest. It was clean. It was mine. 3 days after signing the papers, I woke before dawn with a pain in my chest that was not sadness. It was something physical, real, terrifying. A pressure, squeezing, as if someone were wringing my heart with both hands. I tried to get out of bed. My legs would not move. I could not get air into my lungs. The room began to spin. The new curtains, the reading chair, the small table by the window, all of it tilting and blurring. I tried to call out. My voice came out as a whisper. I reached for the nightstand, for my phone, but my arm went heavy and dropped to the mattress like a dead weight. I thought of Grace. I thought, so this is how it happens. You survive everything, the poverty, the grief, the betrayal, and then your own heart decides it has had enough. Everything went black. I woke in a hospital bed. Fluorescent lights, the steady beeping of a monitor, a needle in my arm connected to an IV drip, a nurse standing over me checking numbers on a screen. "How are you feeling, Mrs. Kingsley?" "What happened?" My voice was a rasp. "You had a minor heart attack. Your neighbor found you on the floor and called 911. You are very lucky to be alive." Dorothy Mitchell, my guardian angel. She had come to deliver biscuits, the way she did every Saturday morning, and found my door unlocked and me unconscious beside the bed. "How long have I been here?" 8 hours. We've notified your family. 2 of your children arrived about an hour ago. They flew in from Denver and Austin. Eleanor and Thomas, hundreds of miles away, and they had dropped everything and come. "And my son Sebastian?" I asked. "He lives 20 minutes from here." The nurse hesitated, the kind of hesitation that contains an entire answer. "He was notified 7 hours ago, Mrs. Kingsley. He hasn't come." Those words hurt worse than the heart attack. My other 2 children crossed state lines. Sebastian could not cross town. Eleanor burst through the door first, her eyes red and swollen. Thomas was right behind her, his shirt buttoned wrong, his hair wild, the look of a man who dressed in a moving car. "Mom," Eleanor grabbed my hand. "Thank God. We thought we were going to lose you." "What happened?" Thomas took my other hand. "Dorothy called us sobbing. She said she found you on the floor. Why didn't you tell us you were sick?" "I didn't want to worry you." "Worry us?" Eleanor's voice cracked with anger. "You almost died, Mom. The doctor said 10 more minutes and—" She could not finish. I told them everything. The dinner, the confrontation, the contract, the utility closet. All of it. I watched my children's faces move through the same stages James Hartwell's had. Concern, disbelief, horror, fury. Thomas stood up. His gentle face had turned to stone. "I'm married, Mom. I have 2 kids. And Patricia would never, never ask me to treat you like that. And if she did, she wouldn't be the woman I want to be with. A good wife doesn't make you choose between her and your family. A good wife brings people together. She doesn't tear them apart." The doctor came in, a serious man with glasses and gray temples. "The heart attack was caused by acute and prolonged stress. Your mother's blood pressure was at critical levels. If we don't make drastic changes to her environment, the next one will not be minor. It will be fatal." "What does she need?" Eleanor asked immediately. "Complete elimination of stress sources, daily medication, psychological therapy, and a real support network. Family that heals her, not destroys her." He looked directly at me. "Mrs. Kingsley, by medical recommendation, I advise you to cut contact with whatever situation is causing this. At least 3 months. You need to heal, and you cannot heal if you keep being wounded." Those words were a release. A doctor was giving me permission to step away, to choose myself, to set a boundary without guilt. "I'll do it," I said. Eleanor squeezed my hand. "And we will be with you every single step." Sebastian never came to the hospital. Not a call, not a message, nothing. But I was not expecting anything from him anymore, because I had discovered something important in that hospital bed. I had been looking for love in the wrong place. Sebastian had shown me who he was. It was time I believed him. 2 weeks after I left the hospital, my phone rang at 2 in the morning. It was Eleanor. "Mom, I just got the strangest call. A woman named Virginia Pemberton, Arabella's mother. She says she needs to meet with you urgently. She says she has information that changes everything." The next afternoon, Eleanor and I sat across from Virginia in a coffee shop on Wabash Avenue. She looked like a different woman from the one who had sat at my dinner table and suggested I belonged in a nursing home. Her hair was uncombed. Dark circles ate into her cheeks. Her hands trembled as she placed a thick manila envelope on the table. "I need you to know the truth about my daughter," she said, "about what she really is." I opened the envelope. Credit card statements in Arabella's name. $23,000 in debt, accumulated over 3 years, long before she met Sebastian. Medical records. Printed text messages between mother and daughter. Virginia talked. And the more she talked, the harder the ground shifted beneath everything I thought I knew. Arabella was a compulsive spender. Her parents had paid off her debts 5 separate times. She met Sebastian on a dating app. The moment she learned he had a house, she saw her opportunity. She had done this before. 3 men before Sebastian. Always the same pattern. Charm, lies, money, then disappearance when the truth got too close. But the worst, the thing that made my coffee go cold untouched, came last. "My daughter cannot have children," Virginia whispered. Her voice was barely audible above the cafe noise. "She has had a uterine condition since she was 18. The doctors were very clear. Natural pregnancy is not viable." Eleanor gripped my arm under the table. "She told Sebastian she was 3 months pregnant," I said. "She is lying. There is no pregnancy. There never was." Virginia showed us her phone. Text messages between her and Arabella laid bare on the bright screen like an open wound. "I told Sebastian I'm pregnant. He was thrilled." "Arabella, you cannot do this. When he finds out you lied, he won't find out. I'll say I miscarried in a couple of months. By then I'll be settled in the house and he won't be able to get rid of me." "This is wrong, Arabella. Very wrong. You never support me. You always criticize. That's why I'm in this situation. I need this house, Mom. I need to get out of debt or they're going to sue me." I set the phone down. My hand was steady, but only because I had no feeling left in it. "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "She is your daughter." Virginia covered her face. "Because yesterday she came to ask me for $5,000 for fake pregnancy tests to keep the lie going." She was sobbing now. Ugly, heaving sobs that shook her thin frame. "I have watched my daughter destroy 3 men's lives. I watched her destroy yours. I cannot do it anymore. I cannot." Eleanor collected every document with the practiced calm of a lawyer building a case. "I'll need certified copies, and I'll need you willing to testify if it comes to that." "Whatever it takes," Virginia said. "I just want this to end." I stared at the papers spread across that coffee shop table. My son, my poor, foolish, broken son, had been deceived from the very beginning. Every cruel thing he allowed, every door he closed in my face, every dollar he spent, all of it built on a foundation of lies. I picked up my phone and dialed. "Sebastian, come to my apartment, now. Bring Arabella." They arrived 40 minutes later. Sebastian nervous, pulling at his collar. Arabella in tight maternity clothes and a bored expression, like she had been dragged away from something more important. "I hope this is worth it, Mom. I had to leave work early." "Sit down," I said. Eleanor stood beside me, a folder in her hands. Sebastian noticed her and stiffened. "Why is Eleanor here?" "Because what I'm about to tell you is serious, and you need family beside you when you hear it." Arabella's boredom shifted into something sharper, alert, watchful, the instinct of a woman who has spent her entire adult life staying one step ahead of the truth. "Your mother came to see me," I said, looking directly at Arabella. Every drop of color left her face. "My mother? What did she say?" Eleanor opened the folder. Her voice was calm and precise, the voice she used in courtrooms. "She said you're not pregnant, Arabella, that you never were, that you have a medical condition making natural pregnancy impossible, and that you lied to Sebastian to keep the house." The silence that followed was not empty. It was full of 3 years of lies collapsing in on themselves like a building with no foundation. Sebastian rose from the sofa slowly. So slowly it seemed like gravity was working against him. "What?" His voice was barely a whisper. "What did you just say?" "She's lying," Arabella shouted. "My mother is crazy. She's always been jealous of me. Here are the medical records." Eleanor placed them on the coffee table. "Certified. Your full legal name. Dated 6 months ago, when you were already married to Sebastian. Diagnosis: bicornuate uterus with severe adhesions. Natural pregnancy not viable." She placed the text messages beside them. "And here is the conversation with your mother, where you admit, in your own words, that there is no pregnancy, that there never was." Sebastian took the phone with both hands trembling. He read once, twice, 3 times. His lips moved, but no sound came out. "Tell me the truth," he said. He did not look up from the screen. "Please, Just the truth. Those are fake. Arabella's voice climbed higher. Your mother forged them to break us apart. Then let's go to the hospital right now, Sebastian said. His voice had changed. Something in it had gone flat and hard, like a door locking shut. Right now. An ultrasound. In front of me. Arabella's mouth opened, closed, opened again. For the first time since I had known her, she had no script ready. No sweet voice, no dismissive wave, no lie queued up and waiting. It's late, Sebastian. We can't just... Emergency rooms are open 24 hours, Eleanor said. Let's go. Right now. No. Arabella's voice cracked down the middle. I'm not going. I don't have to prove anything to any of you. And there it was. The wordless confession. The silence that says everything speech cannot. Sebastian looked at her. Tears were streaming down his face. He was not wiping them away. He did not seem to know they were there. Tell me, he said one more time. Quiet, almost gentle. The voice of a man asking to be released from something he can no longer carry. Arabella was silent for a long time. The clock on the wall ticked. The refrigerator hummed. Outside, a car passed on the street, its headlights sweeping briefly across the curtains. Then slowly, like a building folding in on itself, she began to cry. I'm not pregnant, she whispered. I never was. The sound that came from Sebastian was something I hope I never hear again as long as I live. It was not a scream, and it was not a sob. It was something older than both, a sound that comes from below language, from below thought, from the place where a man keeps the things he believed were true. He put his hands on his head. He pulled at his own hair. He paced the small apartment in tight circles, like an animal that has just realized the cage has no door. Why? His voice broke on the word. Why did you do this to me? Because I needed the house. Because I had debts. Because I was desperate. And me? He stopped pacing. He stood in the middle of my living room with his arms hanging at his sides, tears dripping off his jaw. Didn't I matter? My feelings? My life? My mother? It was going to work, Arabella sobbed. I was going to say I lost the baby in a few months. Nobody had to get hurt. Nobody had to get hurt? Sebastian's voice rose for the first and only time. I abandoned my mother. I let you throw her things on the lawn. I let you lock her out of her own bathroom. I spent every dollar she ever saved. I put the woman who raised me in a storage closet. And it was all for a lie. Arabella looked at me. The mask was completely gone now. What was underneath was not a monster. It was a frightened, cornered, broken woman who had never learned the difference between taking and earning, between manipulation and love. This is your fault, she hissed. You ruined everything. We could have been happy. Happiness built on lies is not happiness, Arabella, I said. My voice was steady. I do not know how, but it was. It's just an illusion waiting to collapse. She grabbed her purse and stormed out. The door slammed so hard a picture fell off the wall. Sebastian collapsed onto the floor, and I did something that surprised even me. I lowered myself down, slowly, because my knees are not what they were, and sat on the cold floor beside my son, and I held him. I held him the way I held him when he was 5 years old and afraid of thunderstorms. I held him the way I held him the night his father died, when he shook so hard I thought he would shake apart. I'm sorry, Mom. His whole body trembled against mine. You were right about everything, and I was too blind and too weak and too stupid to see it. Shh, I whispered, rocking him gently. It's over now. It's over. Can you ever forgive me? I already have, son, from the moment you had the courage to look for the truth. We stayed like that on the floor of my small apartment for a long time. A mother and her broken son, holding on to each other in the wreckage of everything that had gone wrong. Because sometimes, to rebuild, you first have to let everything fall completely apart. Sebastian filed for divorce the following week. With the evidence, the fake pregnancy, the hidden debts, the text messages, Virginia's sworn testimony, it was fast and it was final. Arabella fought. She demanded compensation. She claimed emotional distress. She accused Sebastian of abuse. Every lie crumbled under the weight of documentation. Virginia Pemberton, true to her word, testified against her own daughter. It was heartbreaking to watch. A mother on the stand, crying, choosing truth over loyalty because loyalty without honesty is just another kind of prison. Howard Pemberton, when he learned everything, collapsed. 3 days in the hospital. When he came out, he told Arabella she was no longer welcome in his home. Arabella was left with nothing. No house, no husband, no family. And 3 months later, James Hartwell called me with one final piece of news. Arabella was arrested this morning. She tried the same scheme on a businessman in Queens. Fake pregnancy, drained his accounts, sold his belongings. But this one hired a private investigator. He uncovered her entire history, the previous victims, the pattern, everything. He pressed criminal charges. She's facing up to 8 years for aggravated fraud. The other victims are joining a class action. I felt no joy, only a tired, heavy sadness for a woman who never learned that you cannot build a life by tearing apart someone else's. How is Sebastian taking it? I asked. He said he hopes she gets help, that she finds whatever she's looking for, but that it's not his concern anymore. Good, I thought. That is the sound of a man who has finally grown up. Sebastian made every payment, every single month. $2,200, $1,200 for rent, $1,000 toward the debt, without fail, without complaint, without a single excuse. He moved into a small studio apartment near his office. He lost weight, then gained it back the healthy way. He started seeing a therapist. And every Sunday, without exception, he came to my apartment for dinner. One Sunday, 2 months after the divorce was finalized, he sat across from me at my small kitchen table, stirring sugar into his coffee, and said something I did not expect. Mom, I didn't marry Arabella because I loved her. I married her because I was afraid. Afraid of what? Of being alone, of not being enough. He stared into his coffee. When Dad died, I was 15, and I watched you work yourself to the bone to raise us. I always wanted to prove to you that your sacrifice was worth it, that I had made it. So when Arabella came along, beautiful, confident, interested in me, I thought this was my chance to have the perfect family, to show you I was a success. He looked up. His eyes were clear for the first time in years. But I did everything wrong. Instead of protecting you, I hurt you. Instead of honoring what you gave up for us, I trampled on it. Sebastian, let me finish. I betrayed everything you taught me. To impress a woman who never loved me. How can you even look at me after what I did? I got up from my chair. I sat beside him. I took his face in my hands, the way I used to when he was small and had nightmares. Sebastian, listen to me. Everyone makes mistakes. Everyone. What matters is not the mistake. It's what you do after. You acknowledged it. You asked for forgiveness. You ended a toxic relationship. You're rebuilding your life on truth instead of lies. That takes more courage than never falling down in the first place. He reached into his backpack and pulled out an envelope. Inside were legal documents, the deed to 247 Jacaranda Street, formally and irrevocably transferred into my name. No conditions, no tenancy at will, nothing. It's yours, Mom. It always was, but now it's official. I renounce every right to it. Sebastian, where will you live? In my studio. I'm saving. In a few years, I'll buy my own place, something I earn, not something I was given. He held my gaze. Let me do this, Mom. Let me show you that I've learned, that your sacrifice was not for nothing. I pulled him close and held him tight. My son, my boy, who was no longer a boy but was finally becoming the man I always knew he could be. 6 months later, a Sunday afternoon in October, I was sitting in the garden of my pale yellow house on Jacaranda Street, my house, with my name on the deed and my flowers in the beds and my curtains in the windows. I had cleaned every corner, repainted every wall, put plants on every sill. Eleanor helped me renovate the kitchen. Thomas fixed up the garden. And Sebastian came every Sunday for dinner, sometimes with his siblings, sometimes alone, but always on time, always respectful, always present. That afternoon, all 4 of us were there. Me, Sebastian, Eleanor, and Thomas, drinking lemonade in the shade of the bougainvillea I had planted myself the year Walter died. Do you know what day it is? I asked. What day? Eleanor tilted her head. Exactly 1 year ago today, I drove home from Grace's funeral and found my entire life scattered on this lawn. The laughter stopped. Sebastian looked down at his glass. Mom, he began. No, I said, and I smiled. I'm not saying it to make anyone feel bad. I'm saying it because 1 year ago I stood in that driveway and thought I had lost everything. My house, my dignity, my family, my son. I looked at each of them in turn. My 3 children. Imperfect, complicated, beautiful. But what I actually lost were the illusions, the lies, the things that were never real to begin with. And when all of that burned away, I discovered what was. What was real? Thomas asked softly. You, the ones who stayed, the ones who fought for me, the ones who showed me that family doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be true. Sebastian wiped his eyes and said nothing. He did not need to. Everything that needed saying had already been said, not in words, but in 12 months of Sunday dinners and on-time payments and slow, steady, quiet proof that people can change if they choose to. We raised our glasses of lemonade and clinked them together, and we laughed. And for the first time in a very long time, the laughter was real. That night, after my children left, I went out to the garden one last time. The sky was clear. Stars scattered across it like salt spilled on a dark table. The same sky I had looked at 1 year ago, standing in this exact spot, believing my life was over. In my hand, I held Walter's reading glasses case, the one I had seen lying cracked open on the wet grass that terrible first night, a muddy footprint across my husband's photograph. Eleanor had found a craftsman to repair it. New glass fitted carefully into the old brass frame. It clicked shut with the same satisfying sound it always had. New glass, old frame. Like my family. Like me. I held it against my chest and looked up at the stars. Thank you, Grace, I whispered. Thank you for teaching me that life is too short to waste on people who don't see your worth. The wind blew gently through the garden, rustling the bougainvillea. The purple blossoms swayed and whispered, and I swear on everything holy and true, I heard my sister's voice carried in that wind. You're welcome, little sister. Now live, truly live. And that is exactly what I did. If this story found you, wherever you are, whatever you are going through, I want you to know something. You are worthy. You have always been worthy. It does not matter your age. It does not matter how many times someone made you feel small or useless or in the way. You have a right to your dignity, to your space, to your peace, to your home, whether that home is a house or simply the knowledge that you deserve to be treated like a human being. And if someone, anyone, even someone you love, makes you feel like you are less than you are, then it is time to do a clean out, to say, enough, to set a boundary, to defend yourself, not with cruelty, not with revenge, but with the quiet, unshakable certainty that you matter. I did it at 67 years old. You can too. If this story touched your heart, leave a comment telling me where you're listening from. The United States, England, Australia, Canada. I would love to know that these words reached you. Hit that like button if you believe dignity has no price tag. And subscribe for more stories of women who decided they were done being invisible. Because every single one of us has a warrior inside, waiting to wake up.